All right, so I was walking through a Kroger's right now with Mello, and we were talking about things I talk about on the channel all the time. And I could tell there was a Millennial Steam fan right behind us. We didn't know this person, we weren't talking to them. They were just overhearing our conversation, and they just let out I agree with everything you just said with a couple of curse words. And I was like, oh my God, the regular, ordinary prole is out there right now, suffering the indignity of low wages and being treated like they don't matter. And that's something that more and more Americans and just people in general are feeling in this world right now, that nothing they do matters. You can't get out of the way of poverty. You're not going to work your way out of poverty. You're not going to get lucky and win the lottery to get out of poverty. You just have a life sentence of working a job that will never allow you to move up in any significant way and better yourself. More and more of us are finding that working in the service industry is not profitable. In fact, I would say it goes in the exact opposite direction. And because there aren't better jobs, and the fact that most people who are trapped at the bottom right now may not have the option of doing better for themselves. While Mello and I ate lunch today, she said this to me that she knows that because she didn't go to school and she doesn't have any special skills, that she's pretty much trapped in her wage bracket. There's no moving up, but there's definitely room for moving down. All right, so let's get into our monologue really quick. They tell us we're failing because we're lazy. But the truth is, they profit every time we fall behind. The system was never built to lift us up. It was built to keep us running in circles, chasing a finish line that keeps moving. Every missed payment, every skipped meal, every sleepless night we spend working two jobs, that's money in someone else's pocket. And the worst part is, they've convinced us it's all your own fault that you're a loser. And I never really thought about that. It actually just dawned on me. The more jobs that you work for unlivable wages, the richer people get that own these businesses that benefit directly from you working yourself into oblivion. They can't believe that people are this stupid, that people will continue to go back to a job that actively lets them know that they don't like them. It's just like my current job. I know that I'm not a well liked person. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that people don't like you in the workplace. It's not just you, it's like all the other people around you. It's only the people who notice how useful you are the people that realize that, you know what, if Millennial Steam wasn't here, who's going to do this work? And I'm just like, that's a good question. That's a good question to ask yourself when you only have one person in an entire corporation that does your job. That's a lot of responsibility to put on a person who's not well paid and treated poorly in the workplace. Talking point number one: every late fee, overdraft charge, and payday loan is a business model. The system is designed to keep you just above drowning, so you keep paying, working, and consuming out of desperation. First of all, shout out to Inu Blue for recommending this video. I took her comment and turned it into an entire video. I forgot to put the comment at the beginning. I just got back from spending all day with Mello, and I have to put this video together so I don't have to work during the week. But if you look at the environments where poor people live, the everything around us is built and designed to exploit us, to keep us entertained, and most of all, to keep us from rising up against them. Within walking distance of my current house, I can walk 5 minutes in any direction and find the things that proles need. If I need to pawn something to pay a bill, It's right across the street. If I need love, there's an Asian massage parlor 2 doors down. If I need a payday loan, that's right across the street, right next to my gym. If for some reason I can't sleep at night because I'm having panic attacks and I'm severely depressed about my financial situation, I can go to the 24-hour drive-through liquor store that's right next door to the payday loan place. I wonder if any of this is an amazing coincidence that so many corporations directly profit from your suffering. I never thought about it, but every time they charge you for not having enough money in your bank account and you get an overdraft charge, they directly profit from your failure. When I was with the credit union a few years back, they had this sneaky way of getting you to run out of money in your bank account, and then they would start charging you $20, even if it was just a pack of gum, in an overdraft fee. They loved when you ran out of money because it was just more profit for them. And an overdraft fee, all it is a punishment. As a renter, if you don't pay your rent on day one, there's a late fee and a daily charge. And they will keep daily charging you until they evict you, leading to a point in which you can't get caught up. Credit cards are the exact same way. Late fees, service fees, interest, everything about being a pro means that you're being attacked. And I I don't know what to say to that. Being financially attacked by wealthy people as a poor person has made them incredibly wealthy. Wealthy beyond the amount of money that you and I will ever see in 1,000 lifetimes. Talking point number 2. The myth of upward mobility is a distraction. The truth is, the system needs a struggling class. Everyone, if everyone made it out, who would stock the shelves, clean the floors, or work the night shifts? This is something that once I got out of school, I learned about working in retail. Is that as soon as I graduated and I couldn't find a job, and I was taking out the trash, I was cleaning the floors, and I was working till 2 o'clock in the morning for years. I never understood that this was society's punishment for not being born rich, for not having access to good connections, for not being able to find a decent job with a high level of education. Everything about my life after college was a punishment for not having what seemed like the right credentials to be successful. Sure, they can show us that one guy that went from the ghetto to Harvard and use that as inspiration to tell you that anyone can do it. But the reality is that that is an outlier. Most people who grow up in the trash will stay in the trash. In fact, I've seen documentaries where parents have children and the children just follow in their footsteps. They work the same job, they may live in the same home or very close to their parents. They just follow in their footsteps because your parents usually, if you're poor people, your parents don't have sound financial advice for you. You're not going to get financial advice in school, your parents, or your friends because most likely your other friends are proles too. They're just as broke as you are. They work where you work. They go to school where you go to school. You're surrounded by negativity. You're surrounded by people who don't aspire to any amount of greatness. They're just ordinary people who have to do the jobs that no one else wants to do. And without those people to sacrifice themselves for the greater good of people who are doing better than they are, we can't have a civilized society. If we don't have people who want to join the military, well, guess what? You're going to have to encourage them more strongly in order to participate in sectors of our society that people don't see value in. In fact, Mel and I were driving back right now to my house, and there was a police officer in the middle lane, And as we passed him, he was holding a ball in his arm out in the middle of traffic. So it looked like he stopped in the middle lane, ran over to one side of the street, picked up a ball, and then brought it back into his cop car. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, there's a lot of crappy things that police have to do. But picking up a ball in the middle of the day on a Saturday? Yeah, again, there are much worse things that the proletariat has to do, including taking if you're in a public bathroom, like I worked at Walmart, and this would happen. You call it an upper decker, right? You walk in to clean the bathroom, and there's an upper decker there. And those of you who've ever had to clean public toilets, like I have, you know what an upper decker is. It's one of the most repulsive things that you can do to a person that's already making minimum wage. Talking point number 3. Desperation keeps wages low and control at the most extreme level. You wouldn't believe how much of your life is controlled by your financial situation. Don't have a girlfriend? Chances are you're broke. Don't have a house? You're broke. Don't have a future? You're broke. It's all about control. If you're not paying people enough money to live, all you're doing is saying you're allowed to exist to be poor. When you're broke and exhausted, you're easier to control. You'll accept bad hours, low pay, and even disrespect. The disrespect, and I will put this at the most extreme levels of disrespect. If the rich could make humiliating the proletariat profitable, they would have every one of us show up at work in a chicken costume every day so that we understand the humiliation of working at the bottom, of not having a good job. It would be the equivalent of wearing like the overalls from the book 1984 movie, whichever, but they would dress us up in chicken costumes. The chicken costume would become the new casual business attire, complete with a hat and a cape. The ultimate humiliation being a 35-year-old man in a chicken costume who went to school, somehow got wrapped up in a family, and has no choice but to take any job. And that involves wearing the humiliating suit of the proletariat. It's only a matter of time before they either chain us to a desk or make us feel even more pathetic. Because the more pathetic you feel at work, the more they win. The more your boss knows that you're afraid of losing your job. And this was something that Mel and I talked about constantly today. We were sitting in my car and we were getting ready to turn off, and she was talking about her husband's promotion, I guess, at work. And she was saying that no one feels safe where there were 1,000 layoffs and you get spared. Well, guess what? You may not get spared the next time or the time after that. And that's exactly how I feel. I saw so many people get laid off in the past few months, and people who really believed that they had job security. In fact, one of the executives called me first thing in the morning yesterday and asked me about a certain person. It's like, hey, Millennial Sting, what does this person have? And I need to know this right now because we're about to we're about to get rid of some people, so we need to know what's our stuff. And you have to just sit there, and I feel bad. My stomach hurts every time that I know that someone is going to lose their livelihood. Because as I was talking with Mello today, she was telling me a story about a guy who got laid off while he was in the hospital while his wife was giving birth to their child. I mean, can you imagine where you might be when you get that text message that says you no longer work here? They'll mail you your items back to your house, but you're not allowed to come back into the office. That's something that my evil corp does all the time, where, okay, you don't work here anymore. You're not allowed on site because those people, they're dangerous. When people lose the ability to survive because you take away their money, people get crazy. People aren't sleeping as well at night as they used to. Why? And that's one simple reason. We're seeing thousands, if not millions of people, all those federal workers that suddenly didn't have a job. These are people that were expecting to do the same job until retirement. Now they're out there bare knuckle boxing for a job at Taco Bell. And remember, in the future, all restaurants are Taco Bell. Sorry, I can't help it. Every time I mention Taco Bell, I think of that line. That and rat burgers, which I think is pretty much every single fast food place in America. All right, talking point number 4. Blame yourself. They want you to think it's your fault, that you're lazy, irresponsible, or just unlucky. But the more we internalize that lie, the less we demand better. And the silence is profitable. I love the irresponsible line. This is something I still get from my boss currently. Every time that I complain about the low pay, he's like, get a roommate, get 2 roommates. Hell, move into your car for all I care. And that's the attitude we're feeling from corporate America. If you have to live in your car, you're just a casualty of the corporate wars because they definitely don't want one corporation raising wages and then have to compete with that corporation for workers. If Target raises their minimum wage to $25, guess what? Walmart's not going to be happy. Any other minimum wage isn't going to be happy. I mean, we've seen the fallout from the $20 minimum wage in California. I have offices that are all over the country that I have to take care of. And if there's one thing I've noticed is that there's some places that cannot keep a low-level worker in place because they're having to compete with fast food for wages. Like here in Arizona, In-N-Out Burgers starting pay is almost $19 an hour. How are you supposed to get a person to work in a Kroger's for $15? It's called desperation. If you don't have the ability to get to that site, because a lot of the people that live in my apartment complex live within walking distance of their job. Not because they want to, but simply because they can't afford a car. In fact, I was just talking to a cashier a few minutes ago about that's in that exact same situation. She makes $2,000 a month working full time as a retail worker, and all that money goes straight to the landlord. And what's left for her to live off? Nothing. People, poor people, have to find the smallest things to be happy about. Some people will tell you it's like, oh, well, at least I have my health, or at least I have a place to live, or at least I have a job. To me, hearing that, at least I have a job, is one of the things that truly, truly bothers me. It's one of those things that keeps me up at night, and it makes me angry as I can't even explain to you guys how upset I get when people say, at least I have a job. And you're like, you have a job that doesn't offer you benefits, has a crazy schedule, and your boss makes certain every single day to try to find some way to get you to quit. It's been my whole life. It's like, when you don't like your workers, and unfortunately, most managers don't like poor people because they have high turnover rates and they are difficult to intimidate. They don't care. They're not plugged in. They're tuned out. They often show up under the influence. They don't care whether or not the corporation is profitable. One of the biggest things that bothered me when I worked in retail is when management would tell you to work like you're the owner, but pay you like you're disposable. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up here. For some reason, today was a very long day, and I have to go buy something that I forgot to get at the grocery store now. And you guys should be seeing this up during the week at some point. And I hope that you guys are already having a future polls of the are already working, and I hope your job is at least tolerable today.